It's Saturday, August 20th, with me, Muhammad Yusuf, for TVS News at 5. Let us begin with our top story. A standard operating procedure (SOP) system needs to be enforced to make sure that projects are delivered as per schedule. Deputy Premier Dato' Amar Douglas Uga Ambas said that the Ministry of Infrastructure and Port Development (MIPD) and the Public Works Department (JKR) are planning to have a seminar to brainstorm ideas and proposals to end sick projects.
He also reminded the ministry and department officers that GPS government has a very high expectation of the delivery of the projects. Uga added that it was very important if the department teams of engineers, technical workers and the consultants had a work plan to ensure a contractor working on a project could complete it according to plan when monitoring the progress of a project. Also present were Deputy Minister of MIPD, Datuk Majang Renggi, MIPD Permanent Secretary Chiu Chiu Yao, Bintulu resident Datuk Jack Aman, and JKR Head of Project Mihan Jorai.
3. Personal information should always be kept private and not be shared to any third party or unknown party. These are username, password, and the transaction activation code or TAC to prevent scammers or hackers from accessing your bank account. If these information are shared carelessly, online criminals can steal money to their heart's content, as what had happened recently to a 45-year-old man from Cebu who lost almost 10,000 ringgit.
According to Cebu District Police Chief, Assistant Commissioner ACP Zulkifli Suhaili, the victim was contacted by an individual who impersonated a bank officer from HSBC Bank in Kuala Lumpur. The scammer had conducted a modus operandi that many of us are familiar with, informing the victim that he had an overdue payment for his credit card. Though denial of having such overdue, the call was then forwarded to a supposed staff of Bank Negara Malaysia who asked for the victim's personal details to undertake an alleged investigation on the account. This action has successfully persuaded the victim into surrendering the aforementioned details, to which incurred a total loss of 9,976 ringgit from the bank account. The case was then reported to the police and is currently investigated under the Section 420 of the Penal Code for cheating. Zulkifli gave a stern warning to the public to be cautious when receiving a suspicious call, especially those who claim they are from the bank. He added the call should be reported to the police immediately.
The federal government has allocated a total of 140 million ringgit to the Supplemental Food Assistance Program (PMBT). Prime Minister Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob said this would benefit over 225,000 children under Tabika KEMAS and over 9,700 preschoolers under Taska KEMAS nationwide. Tabika KEMAS is considered as one of Malaysia's most successful initiatives because many of those who are successful today, including leaders from rural areas, received their early education in KEMAS's institutions. This is why the government supports the development of Tabika KEMAS education, said Ismail Sabri, to ensure students can learn in the most conducive environment. He said this when launching the Jom Masuk Kampung program and Berak KEMAS Potential Day 2022 at Felda Triang 3 in Pahang. Also present during the ceremony is Rural Development Ministry KPLB Secretary General Datuk Ramlan Harun, KEMAS Director General Datuk Muhammad Yasid Bidin, and Pahang Public Works Transport and Health Committee Chairman Datuk Sri Nurul Azali Sulaiman. The prolonged drought in the Horn of Africa will further increase the likeliness of famine. Since the start of the year, United Nations UN World Food Programme WFP has expanded assistance, but food scarcity continues to threat over 20 million people across Ethiopia, Kenya and Somalia.
Climate change is impacting the entire world, and where I stand here in the Horn of Africa is absolutely no different. We're now looking at 20 million people marching to starvation here in the Horn of Africa. In fact, where I stand in Somalia, 7 million people, and that's twice as many as it was just 6 months ago. Why? Conflict, extremist groups, coupled with the driest season that we have seen in decades. 4 or 5 rainy seasons have just disappeared. And in the past 4 decades, the driest we've ever seen it in a long, long time. People are losing hope. But the World Food Program, if we get the support and the money we need, we can save lives and we can bring hope.
Assistance are provided in food and cash assistance to families while distributing fortified foods to women and young children to treat spiraling rates of malnutrition. Others will rely to whatever they can get their hands on, even when they are too weak to trade. Africa's first annual rainy season, which came in March to April, were its smallest rainfall in 70 years. The second rain from October to December are also predicted to be unusually dry, according to a group of 14 meteorological and humanitarian associations.
Welcome back. It may be one of the most familiar words in economics. Inflation has plunged countries into long periods of instability, with a broad measure on the overall increase in prices or the increase in the cost of living in a country. Whatever the context, inflation represents how much more expensive the relevant of goods and services have become over a certain period. Is the public aware of the price hike and the measures to cope with it? Here's what they have to say.
Kami dah business about 6 months dekat situ. Jadi kami nak merasalah sebelum kenaikan harga dengan selepas. So contohnya kini tu memang ada berasa dari segi bahan mentah. Contoh untuk giant squid, sotong buncit yang besar ya. Dulu kami dapat beli dengan sekilo harganya RM14, now jadi sekilo RM18. Jadi gap kenaikan harga ya RM4 ya sangat-sangat tinggi. Sebagai peniaga memang kami orang terpaksa je lah. Mau si mau terpaksa naikkan sikit harga jualan lah.
Berasa lah barang naiknya itu. Lagi-lagi ada anak, pampers semua naik, barang susu naik.
Kena tu lebih menaik lah. Sebab pasaran dunia kena tu nak mengefek kita pun duit lah. Jadi rasa duit kita terlalu sikit nilainya kena tu bandingkan dulu lah.
When asked on comparing their spending now and back then, this is what they have to say.
Mun dulu kami rasa ada kenaikan yang sampai 3 kali ganda lah kami rasa kan itu. Ada part ialah untuk barang-barang belajar kami lah. Yang paling ketara ialah barang keperluan asas lah. Mun pakai nanggung kehidupan kita macam makanan lah yang paling berasa sekali kan itu. Yang lain kami rasa ya lebih pada spekulasi barang lah. Ada orang peniaga hanya cuba naikkan barang lah untuk kami siapa salahkan tidak jalan sebab kos kehidupan kena tu semua nanggung.
Perbelanjaan memang kena tu terpaksa kontrol supaya terlebih daripada bajet yang ada. Tapi dalam masa yang sama kami orang mau cukup bahan mentah untuk dijual, diserve kepada pelanggan lah. Si dapat juga nak madah, oh tu sedah sebab harga naik. Si boleh juga sebab dari segi customer ya, kami orang kena mesti mau ada barang lah untuk di-serve.
As inflation is on the rise, Malaysia is one of the few countries that managed to keep it in low levels of average of 2 to 3%. Whether you are a wealthy businessman or even a simple housewife, the changes of prices of goods and services will affect everyone as consumers. But will this be a short-term thing, or is it something that become more serious in the future? We will see. My name is Ahmad Azlan Shah with videographer Muhammad Nasrullah reporting for TVS.
Now, Malaysia's economy grew at the fastest rate in a year this year, fueled by a surge in consumption, underpinning the recovery of services and manufacturing, thus boosting the central bank's scope to focus on fighting inflation. According to Bank Negara Malaysia, gross domestic product GDP expanded 8.9% in the April-June period in 2022 compared with the same period over a year ago, beating the 7% median estimate in a Bloomberg survey. Meanwhile, output rose 3.5% from the first quarter against a median estimate of a 1% growth. Now, earlier this week, we were joined by Shan Said, a chief economist from JUI-IQI, on the effects of inflation on the country's economy. Let's hear his opinions.
So overall, I think Bank Negara has got sufficient room, but we don't expect at JUI-IQI that Bank Negara will go very aggressive in terms of rate hikes. They might increase by 25 basis points from here, where discount rate, the OPR rate is already at 2.25. But I don't see the discount rate touching 3% this year. The maximum they can go up to is 2.5. Even at 2.5, we expect that Bank Negara will be able to tame price inflation under 3%, which is a good number to start with. I think overall the inflation numbers will remain subdued. And I think Bank Negara has done a good job in the last 2-3 years, taking into account the economy has gone through COVID challenges, but Bank Negara has maintained structural stability in ringgit, and overall monetary policy has remained pretty stable.
When asked whether Malaysia is heading towards recession, Shan dismissed the idea, adding that the GDP for the second quarter of the year proved otherwise. Nonetheless, he foresees that the year ahead will be a challenge towards the economy due to factors such as the rising geopolitical tension.
The technical definition of recession is when your GDP goes down, is negative for 2 consecutive quarters. That is recession. So first quarter, the GDP was 5%. The second quarter, 8.9%. So where is recession? I don't know. But the pragmatic definition of recession is when consumers don't spend, the businesses don't invest, the economy actually shrinks. You go to any mall in KL right now, whether it's KLCC or Pavilion or BSC, Vanutama, I think you can see the restaurant business, 80% are full. Restaurant business is like the pulse of the economy. Malaysia, as you know, ranked 27, 28 in the world in terms of energy consumption. So when you talk about recession at JUI-IQI, I can say in categorical terms that there won't be any recession in Malaysia. Premature to say what will happen in 2023, but obviously 2023 globally will be much tougher than 2022 due to geopolitical risk.
That's all the time we have for TVS News at 5. My name is Muhammad Yusuf. Have a good day ahead.